So the short answer is no. Chinese anime, aka donghua, have a pretty long way to go before they can realistically hold a candle to the literal government-backed project that is Japanese anime. However, the gap might not be as wide as you think. I don't think it's a stretch to say that Japan has damn near monopolized the global market for 2D animation. Ever since Disney stopped cooking 2D shit back in like 2010 or whatever, crazy fumble by the way. But ever since Disney stopped cooking 2D shit back in like 2010, almost all of my favorite 2D animated projects have either been from Japan or heavily influenced by works that are Japanese. And if we're being real, I don't think that Japan's dominance over the world of 2D animation is coming to a close anytime soon. As things stand right now, Japan's grip over the 2D animation space has become so undeniable that even non-Japanese companies have started to invest pretty heavily in bolstering their anime catalogs. Here in the US, aka the second largest consumer of anime in the world, I've noticed a rapidly growing trend of major media corporations attempting to pour some of that good anime sauce over their most successful movie, video game, and television franchises, even when not a damn soul asked for that shit. And even though these weird half-baked anime adaptations have landed with varying degrees of quality, the sheer volume of them over the past few years can't be denied. There's been a major global push from non-Japanese companies to establish themselves as legitimate contenders in the anime space. Now, like I said earlier, it'll probably be a while before any country other than Japan can realistically compete with the anime output coming from Japan itself. I mean, Japan has essentially had decades to refine and dominate the anime market, the medium more or less evolving alone on that island without any serious competition from abroad. But setting aside Japan's borderline lockdown on the anime industry and the fact that it will probably stay that way for the foreseeable future, I think the anime coming out of China in recent years have been, pound for pound, some of the most interesting anime we've seen in a long time. You see, the thing about Chinese stories compared to Western stories, let's say American stories for the sake of specificity, because who's really fucking with shit from like the UK anyway? But the difference between adapting a Chinese story into an anime versus an American story into an anime is the fact that Chinese stories tend to flow more seamlessly in the anime, since anime at its core is actually based off of Chinese stories. I'm going to spare y'all the paragraphs upon paragraphs of nerdy storytelling minutia that only nerd-ass niggas like myself care about, but to make a long story short, the narrative structure behind early Chinese poetry influenced classical Japanese literature, which influenced modern Japanese literature, which influences manga, which influences anime, and thus, the stories told in anime can flow seamlessly backwards into manga and Japanese literature, so on and so forth, all the way back to early Chinese literature, which inspires modern Chinese literature. Do you see what I'm getting at here? Cool, then can I see you get at that subscribe button for me real quick? It really helps this channel out a lot. Thank you so much. Anyway, like the US, China has also began to stomp their foot on the gas when it comes to amplifying their presence on the world anime stage. Over the past decade or so, super high quality donghua have been quietly dropping for the Chinese market, and as recently as the beginning of this spring anime season, it seems like China has really upped the ante when it comes to trying to capture global fans for their anime/anime adjacent projects. You can think of this video as an indirect result of China's recent foray onto the global anime market. I would personally consider myself a success case of this marketing push. I mean, after watching To Be Hero X this season, I found myself growing more and more intrigued with the types of stories that donghua may have to offer, and so I want to use this video as a sort of exploration of just that, an exploration into the world of donghua. For the purposes of this video, I've compiled 5 of the so-called Chinese anime that have impressed me the most on my cursory exploration into the world of donghua over the past week. And today, ladies and gentlemen, I want to share these 5 series with you all in hopes of, you know, maybe finding something that aligns with your particular taste in anime. And so, without any further ado, allow me to introduce you to the sponsor of today's video, Boot.dev. Boot.dev is an online learning platform that takes the process of learning how to code and makes it about 500 times less boring by remixing your usual lessons into what's essentially an RPG style video game. Look bro, if I'm being honest, in the big 25, after having my attention span fried by Instagram Reels, I found that I benefit greatly when learning feels like something I'd actually do in my free time. For instance, I wasn't bothered by having to learn about classical Chinese poetry for the sake of this video because I knew it tied back into something I was personally interested in, anime. Boot.dev understands that need to have something else besides raw instructional content. Instead of, trudging through lectures or walls of text in a textbook, you're completing quests, earning XP, fighting boss battles, unlocking achievements, all while actually learning back-end development in languages like Python and JavaScript. But beyond just not being boring, which is low-key an accomplishment in itself when we're talking about back-end coding. When you use boot.dev, you're actually writing code. You're actually completing real projects. And so even though it may feel like just a game to you, as you play, you're still developing the fundamental skills that you need in order to apply what you learn to real-world projects outside of boot.dev. If learning how to code sounds like a skill that you're interested in acquiring, visit boot.dev today and use my code TeddySlump to get 25% off your first year if you go with the annual plan. You can also think of it as somewhat of a free trial, since boot.dev offers a 30-day no questions asked refund policy, so there's really no risk in at least trying it out. Thanks again to boot.dev for sponsoring this video and continuing to support this channel on multiple occasions. And now let's get into the first Chinese anime that I want to explore with y'all today, Scissor 7. Imagine a world where assassins are as common as shitty underground rappers that work part-time at Popeyes. A world where hitmen are so numerous that the professional market for hitmen has become oversaturated, leading to a market of freelance hitmen who you can pay to do someone in for less than the price of a combo meal at that aforementioned Popeyes. If this shit sounds crazy to you, then allow me to introduce you to the world of Scissor 7, a world where the scenario that I just described isn't some crazy hypothetical scenario, but instead it's just the everyday reality. Within this world of freelance hitmen, there exists this dude right here named Seven. Seven, also known as freelance hitman rank 17,369, is a scissor-wielding goofball with an arbitrarily mysterious past that hints at him being way stronger than, well, the 17,369 hitmen that are officially ranked above him. The narrative of Scissor 7 follows Seven and his two bird homies as they take on oddball hitman jobs while gradually piecing together the fragments of a past that Seven can't recall. Basically, they'll go on a mission to kill someone, shenanigans ensue, and then by the end of the episode, some goofy ass twist happens that kinda recontextualizes the whole episode on like some funny shit. Now, the first few seasons of Scissor 7 are what I'd consider an action comedy show, in the sense that the narrative low-key takes a backseat in favor of like episodic Adult Swim type humor. The humor's alright, low-key is kinda hit or miss for me, but the action on the other hand, now this is where Scissor 7 really shines. Scissor 7's action sequences feel like they have no business looking this good. Overall, the show goes for like this sort of stylized, cartoony, almost goofy looking art style that low-key kinda reminds me of like that mid-2000s Hero 108 Yin Yang Yo type vibe. And so it's honestly rather surprising when the fight scenes kick in and the animation team all of a sudden starts getting mad loose with the animation. If it were just one or two fight scenes that Scissor 7 turned up in, I'd be impressed. Alright, a smooth scrap or two is more than enough to keep someone like me engaged. But the thing about Scissor 7 is that the quality of the fight scenes aren't just a little treat that we get every now and then. The high quality scraps are a literal core element of this show. They are a feature of the experience. It almost makes me wish the show focused more on the fights and less on the jokes, because holy bro, the scraps are just so much better than the jokes. I'm not even gonna lie to y'all right now. And this isn't to say that the jokes are horrible, right? I feel like every episode tends to have at least one or two jokes that get a little out of me. But not only do the jokes take away from the scraps, they also kind of make it hard to know when I'm supposed to take the show seriously. There's this one episode in season 1 where the whole twist of the episode is that the assassination target actually hired a hitman to off herself, since she has terminal cancer and wanted to end her life on her own terms. And I'm not gonna lie, okay, this is gonna sound crazy, but when they first revealed that she had cancer, I kinda laughed harder than I laughed at any of the actual intentional jokes in the show. Not because I think cancer is a laughing matter, but because the show did absolutely nothing to let me know that they were actually being dead ass in that moment. Like, the whole episode was just jokes on jokes on jokes, and so naturally, when the girl took off her wig to reveal her little baldy out of nowhere, I thought it was the setup for another joke. it was not. I heard this issue gets better in later seasons when the show starts to hone in more on the action, and I can only hope that's true since I've only really watched season 1 for the sake of this video. But all in all, I think Scissor 7 is probably my go-to recommendation for getting into Donghua if you're starting off totally blind like I was. It introduces you to Donghua in a way that feels very familiar, but still distinct enough to feel interesting. I'll give Scissor 7 4 out of 5 baby monkeys. Along with To Be Hero X, the all-devouring whale Homecoming is one of the recently released Donghua that inspired me to make this video in the first place. Basically, what started off as a singular Instagram reel in my algorithm turned into 2 reels, which turned into 4, and then boom, before you know it, I was entirely sold on the show before ever leaving the Instagram app, which, now that I think about it, is kinda crazy, man. Those are some powerful fucking apps, bruh. The all-devouring whale Homecoming follows the story of Fan Ling Xiao. I apologize in advance for how I'm gonna be pronouncing these names throughout the videos. I really tried, bro. But the all-devouring whale Homecoming follows the story of Fan Ling Xiao, a young man who has the ability to cultivate spirit pets. You could think of spirit pets as like Pokemon, Digimon type monsters that spirit masters use to squabble in spirit battles, except unlike Pokemon or Digimon, these motherfuckers actually be squabbling to the death. Now, Fan Ling Xiao isn't your average spirit pet cultivator, right? Ling Xiao is a prodigy that just so happens to be disproportionately gifted in every aspect of life. So gifted, in fact, that over the span of a few years, Ling Xiao was able to single-handedly establish his own sect of cultivators, the Ling Xiao Pavilion. All in all, life is great for Fan Ling Xiao. He's got money, he's got strength, he's got influence, all the hoes love him. Shit's looking quite alright for Fan Ling Xiao in the Ling Xiao Pavilion. At least until it's not. Seemingly out of nowhere, the life that Ling Xiao worked so hard to build for himself comes crashing down when his most powerful spirit pet, this giant whale monster, decides to slime out his day one mans and devour Ling Xiao in the middle of an exhibition match, causing Ling Xiao to, well, die. Fortunately for Ling Xiao, he just so happened to make some obscure pact with this creepy looking warlock dude that allows him to reincarnate into someone else's body after his death. Unfortunately for Ling Xiao, he ends up getting reincarnated into the fictional ancient Chinese equivalent of a part-time Popeyes employee. This right here is Louis Feng Meng, some dude who died under a tree while on the run from this chick right here. Now me personally, I'll be goddamned if I'm running from all that right there, but anywho, to make a long story short, after reincarnating, Feng Meng has to use his new, less talented, less hot, less powerful body to try to gain back everything from his last life that he lost. In the years since his death, the Ling Xiao Pavilion has fallen off from B rank all the way back down to commoner rank. On top of that, cultivating whales has been banned since, you know, they eat niggas. And on top of that, instead of a cool giant whale monster at his disposal, Feng Meng only has access to a teensy little catfish along with this freaked out BDSM cactus and this weird little dog named Teddy. Teddy's power is to piss on niggas. Now, initially I thought all the concepts introduced in this anime were pretty unique. That was until I did my homework on common Donghua tropes and realized that all of these ideas that I thought were unique, the cultivation, the sects, the ranking system, the martial arts, spirit fighting shit, from what I can tell, all of that is pretty run-of-the-mill Donghua material, which makes sense because a couple of these tropes actually did make their way into Scissor 7 as well. I think I'm basically in the bright-eyed noob phase with Donghua where everything feels cool and fresh to me since I haven't really seen the tropes executed before, and I wouldn't be surprised if I found out the all-devouring whale Homecoming was like a dime in a dozen type series that just so happened to be my first dime out the dozen. But all in all, even if it's a bit tropey, I do still find the show to be a high quality experience both visually and storytelling wise, so I think I'll give the all-devouring whale Homecoming a smooth 3.5 out of 5 baby monkeys. Heaven Official's Blessing is an interesting show to say the least. When I was searching for Donghua to cover in this video, it was damn near impossible to find a recommendation list that didn't include this series. However, upon watching the show itself, I found myself sort of confused about what was going on for like damn near half of season 1. For starters, this series kinda expects the viewer to have a baseline level of familiarity with Taoist cosmology, and unfortunately, because so much of the world building is built around the fundamentals of a belief system that I have absolutely zero stripes in, I low-key came into this series with the applied intelligence level of a part-time Popeyes. And anywho, after doing a little bit of homework and reading up on the basics of Taoism, I think I have a decent grasp on what might be happening in this show, and so my fractured understanding of Heaven's official blessing is what I'm going to be sharing with y'all today. Basically, in the world of Hob, there exists a heavenly court, and this heavenly court is made up of many gods, all of whom are former humans that ascended into godhood. At the beginning of this story, our protagonist, Xie Lian, oh man, I'm so sorry about the name, bro. In fact,
like you're asking a question with Lian. So putting it together, Shai Lian with a falling tone on Xie and a rising tone on Lian.
Xie Lian. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, okay, that was tough. Okay. At the beginning of the story, our protagonist, Xie Lian, is ascending into godhood for the 3rd time. Apparently, this nigga Xie Lian ascended into godhood, fell from grace, ascended once again, fell from grace again, and then ascended once more, where our story picks up. After his 3rd ascension, Xie Lian has to start over from 0 as like a bum level god. He's essentially like the god equivalent of a part-time Popeye. He's got 0 followers to his name, 0 merits to his name. Merits are like XP points that gods collect by doing good shit for mortals. Kind of like if you were to hit the subscribe button for me, that would be like a merit for me. Thank you. Xie Lian doesn't even have a temple to his name at this point, and so in order to gain back all of his godly clout, the heavenly official has no choice but to head back down to the mortal realm and put boots to pavement. He's got to build his own temple and gradually accrue followers by doing good deeds for mortals like slaying ghosts. Ghosts are a whole nother thing in this story. Just think of them as like anti-gods, I guess. Assisting Xie Lian in his journey to get his god swag back is a mysterious human named San Lang. I can't say too much about the boy San Lang without spoiling the whole story, but just know that anytime him and Xie Lian are in the same frame at the same time, a big ass rainbow filter will suddenly hack into your screen and start flashing in your eyeballs like strobe lights. I'm gonna joke explained real quick. This show has a lot of gay subtext that borders on not even being subtext. How they managed to run this shit through the Chinese censorship laws on the sly is honestly beyond me, bruh, but hey. Happy Pride Month, I guess. After watching Heaven Official's Blessing, I started to notice that Chinese anime seems to have its own distinct sort of art direction that is very similar to, but also somewhat different from the Japanese anime that I'm used to. Ignore Scissor 7 for a second, because that show has got its own thing going on. We talked about that art style earlier, but the other donghua that I watched seemed very partial to the idea of using shape dynamics within the line work to give off the impression that the show could have been drawn in ink on a scroll, which I thought was a pretty cool artistic choice. I think it's also worth noting that as far as character design is concerned, the dimorphism between male and female characters is like way less than what I'm typically used to in anime, and anime already likes to blur that line a lot as is. It's like characters that are supposed to look ethereal or otherworldly will skew feminine in appearance regardless of their actual sex, and then basically the bummier a nigga is, the more masculine he'll look. Like even the characters that are supposed to be seasoned war generals will look like they just raided your girl's vanity for her foundation and a little bit of blush. The 2 exceptions I can think of are wise old men. They tend to look pretty gruff in the face, and Seven from Scissor 7, but that nigga is canonically ugly as fuck, so make of that what you will. Anywho, I'm getting a bit sidetracked here. Heaven's Official BLSing, I'll give it another 3.5 out of 5 baby monkeys. And with that, I'd like to introduce you all to the last donghua of the day, Link Click. Link Click is probably the best series that I have to recommend to y'all today, or at the very least my personal favorite of all the shows that we discuss in this video. I've known about Link Click for a good little while now, at least peripherally. I'd always heard it was pretty good basically ever since the show dropped, but I had never really made an effort to go out and watch the show for myself until Well, until I decided to make this video. You see, Link Click happens to share a director with 2B Hero X. I actually found that out by reading some of the comments that y'all left me on previous videos, and because I've been so impressed with the direction of 2B Hero X so far, Link Click was like basically a shoo-in when I was coming up with a roster of donghua that I wanted to review for this video. Link Click follows the story of Cheng Xiaoxi and Lu Guang, two young men who work at a camera shop that's run by this young lady right here, Cao Ling. Now, even though Cao Ling's camera shop appears to be just your average run-of-the-mill camera shop on the surface, it's actually like a freelance time-traveling detective agency where Cao Ling essentially pimps out these two niggas' time travel abilities for her own profit. The two niggas in question basically have complementary superpowers that allow them to time travel into photographs at the time that they were taken. Lu Guang, upon glancing at a photo, gains omniscient knowledge about what happened before and after the photo was taken. And Xiaoxi, upon dapping up Lu Guang, can time travel back to when a photo was taken, except instead of going as himself, he possesses the body of the person who took the photo. Together, the two of them use their abilities to do time travel recon among other things, but in keeping with its nature as a time traveling story, there's always the looming threat of the butterfly effect causing the present they know to spiral out of control if they fuck around with critical junctions in the timeline. Things like saving people from dying and whatnot. Now, this concept on its own sounds interesting enough, right? I mean, time travel stories are cool, but they're by no means uncharted territory in anime. What I think makes Link Click stand out though, even beyond all the time traveling whatnot, are these slight little subversions that the story uses to keep you as a viewer on your toes at all times. When you're watching Link Click, you don't really know what's gonna happen until it happens. Remember, in Link Click, the flow of timelines is determined by specific critical events, not by every single event to happen ever. In other words, in the Link Click verse, you can technically go back in time and change certain things without changing the future, as long as the critical occurrences still occur as they were supposed to. This sort of setup leads to some interesting dynamics, both within the show and in a meta sense as a viewer. As a viewer, you have no idea what altered events are critical events, and this blindness is only exasperated by the fact that Xiaoxi, the dude who can physically time travel, seems to be very partial to changing things about the timeline whenever his emotions get the best of him. Within the show, Xiaoxi's rashness leads to an interesting dynamic with his partner in time, Lu Guang. You see, Lu Guang has an omniscient view of the past when his powers are active, including knowledge of what events are critical events. However, because he feels that it's his duty to maintain the timeline as is, the boy Lu Guang can be kinda snaky and dishonest to Xiaoxi, lying to his face on multiple occasions about the true consequences of his actions. The show itself kinda takes the classic trolley problem and splits it across two people, where one can see the railroad but can't pull the lever, and the other can pull the lever but can't see the railroad. If these two individuals are aligned in who to save, then great, everything works out fine. But if Lever Man wants to go one way and Railroad Man wants to go the other way, then what? Should Railroad Man lie to Lever Man to get the outcome that he wants? Should he tell Lever Man the truth, knowing that there's a chance that Lever Man will act against his wishes? Or should they both just not care and pick up a part-time employee shift? This dynamic is just one of the many aspects of Link Click that make this series an absolute emotional roller coaster to watch. But all in all, I'd say that this is definitely the donghua that I recommend the most out of the ones I've seen. 4.5 out of 5 baby monkeys. Now, I've spent a lot of time glazing Chinese anime in this video, and I think the specific series that I brought up here are deserving of all the glaze that I gave and more, but I feel like it's also only fair that I let it be known I had to trudge through a lot of bullshit to find a solid roster of non-bullshit to present to you all. First off, there's the translation issue. A lot of donghua have no official English translations, and the fan subbing community isn't nearly as robust as what you might find for the Japanese market, so there's a lot of donghua that are kind of just inaccessible to me as an English-speaking viewer. There's also a pretty prevalent slop issue where a lot of the donghua coming out are made up of like 176 episodes of pure CGI ass, and I'm not saying it's ass because it's CGI. I ran into some pretty dope CGI donghua that actually almost made the list for this video. I'm saying it's ass because it's ass. This video only really represents the best of the best that's coming out, and that's one of the reasons why I can't say in good faith that Chinese anime are even in the same arena as Japanese anime, at least in terms of like prolific, high quality output. What I can say, however, is that if these 4 shows are any indication of what's to come during China's push to go global with their anime, then I'm excited for what the future holds, man. I'm excited to see what Gang and them are over there cooking up in China.